There was a brief window in human history where children could disappear for an entire day, and nobody considered it a national emergency. That generation was Gen X. The last generation raised before human beings became permanently reachable, before smartphones, before GPS tracking, before parents could monitor their children with the intensity of a military satellite program. Gen X kids would leave the house at 9 in the morning with a bicycle, a questionable friend named Curtis, and maybe half a sandwich wrapped in foil. That was the survival kit. No phone, no water bottle, no location sharing, no text me when you arrive. Arrive where? Half the time they were just improvising existence. And somehow, society accepted this. Modern parenting feels like cybersecurity. Children now travel with trackers, passwords, emergency contacts, medical information, and enough monitoring technology to guard a nuclear facility. Meanwhile, Gen X parents had one instruction: be home before the streetlights turn on. That was it. No follow-up questions, no contingency plan, no emotional debrief afterward. Honestly, that's less parenting and more confidence-based wildlife management. But psychologically, something important was happening there. Because Gen X children were growing up in an environment with space. Not physical space, mental space. They experienced boredom constantly, and modern people underestimate how psychologically important boredom actually is. Today, boredom lasts maybe 11 seconds before someone opens an app and starts consuming stimulation like oxygen. But Gen X kids had entire afternoons where absolutely nothing happened. No algorithm, no entertainment feed, no personalized content system carefully optimized to manipulate dopamine pathways. Just silence. And when the human brain sits inside silence long enough, it starts building things: imagination, problem solving, identity, or in some cases, dangerous ramps made from stolen plywood. But still, the point stands. Gen X became psychologically independent because they were forced to generate their own reality instead of constantly consuming one. Modern culture trains people to escape discomfort immediately. Feeling awkward? Phone. Waiting in line? Phone. Experiencing a complex emotion? Phone. Human beings now treat silence like a technical malfunction. But Gen X grew up inside silence, which is probably why that generation developed this strange emotional resilience people still talk about today. Not because they were stronger biologically, they just spent more time solving small problems alone. If you got lost, figure it out. If you failed, recover quietly. If you were embarrassed, the moment disappeared naturally because nobody filmed it. That last part matters more than people realize. Gen X might have been the final generation allowed to make mistakes privately. Think about that psychologically for a second. Your worst teenage decision today can become permanent digital evidence within minutes. But Gen X existed before life became content. Their awkward phases vanished naturally. Their failures faded away. Their identities evolved without permanent documentation. And that changes the way a human being develops. Because people become psychologically different when they are not constantly performing for invisible audiences. Modern humans are observed continuously. Likes, views, metrics, notifications, algorithms. Everything is measured now. Even personality has started becoming optimized for engagement. People don't just experience moments anymore. They partially experience themselves having the moment. There's always this second layer of awareness asking, how does this look? But Gen X grew up before personal existence became public media. And maybe that's why their generation feels emotionally harder to categorize. They developed identities in private, no branding strategy, no online persona, no pressure to turn every thought into a performance. They were just people. And strangely, modern society romanticizes that now. Not because the era itself was perfect. It absolutely wasn't. Some of the toys looked like they were designed during active psychological warfare experiments. Metal playground slides hot enough to remove skin layers. Bicycles assembled with pure optimism. Lawn darts, which remains one of the most confusing products in human history, because at some point adults looked at children and thought, you know what would improve family entertainment? Projectile weapons. But despite all the chaos, GenX internalized something modern culture struggles to recreate: the ability to exist without constant stimulation. And psychologically, that creates a completely different relationship with reality. People who grow up without non-stop digital interruption usually develop stronger internal worlds. They learn to self-entertain, to reflect, to observe. Modern technology removed friction from life, but it also removed stillness. And human beings were never really designed for permanent stimulation. That's why so many people now feel mentally exhausted despite living more convenient lives. The brain never fully powers down anymore. There's always information arriving, always content loading, always something demanding attention. But GenX experienced long stretches of uninterrupted reality. You rode your bike, you stared out windows, you got lost in thought. And maybe that's why their memories feel so emotionally vivid now, because attention was less fragmented back then. Moments lasted longer psychologically when they weren't competing against 12,000 pieces of content per week. And maybe that's the deeper reason people keep obsessing over GenX nostalgia online. It's not really about old music, or old movies, or old playgrounds. It's about remembering a version of humanity that felt less observed, less optimized, less interrupted. A world where people could disappear temporarily and still belong to themselves completely. And honestly, that version of life might already be extinct. Anyway, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe. If not, that's okay too. GenX survived childhood using garden hoses as hydration systems and pure guesswork as medical insurance. I think they'll emotionally recover from one missed like button.